Hi, John.
Hi. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes. I can hear you. Hi, Miranda.
All right, let me just...
Okay. So, John, welcome.
Thank you.
And so, everybody, John Byrne from Coventry, am I right?
Yeah, I live in Coventry. I'm not... it's a Coventry thing, don't worry.
So, I won't immediately tell everyone. We are recording this, so we can always view this afterwards. But I want to welcome John to come, and I want to let John introduce himself. And then you can pin his video, or you can have it as you like, so you can really see what he's going to do. So without further ado, thank you, John, for coming. And I'm going to let you run the class. So go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, my name is John. I've been doing Aikido for probably close to 30 years now. I guess I have an interest in something I would refer to as internal strength in Aikido. I guess some of what I'm interested in comes from a more Chinese background. You know, I'm just going to show you some things that that interest me and that I my dojo follows and that we practice very regularly. Please feel free to join in. I'm going to plan to talk and yabber away for probably 25 minutes, and then please, if you have questions, ask. And hopefully we can, you know, have a bit of a chat and demonstrate things, or you know, as we see fit. So don't be shy. Feel free to ask away any questions that you have. If anything's not clear, again, just ask. I'm going to go over things quite a lot, so show, you know, some different variations of things and explain how I think it relates back to Aikido. This practice is one of the main things that we do in my dojo. It's called reeling silk. Reeling silk or silk reeling. Don't worry too much. You know, I guess I'll start. So again, like I said, please, any questions, it's completely fine. We'll have a, you know, bit of a chat at the end, hopefully. So basically, we use these things. They're pool noodles. It's just one of the, you know, the things that you use in the swimming pool. So sometimes in this country, I think they're also called woggles. They're 1 meter long. So if you do want to have a go at this practice, and I highly recommend that you do, just buy a pool noodle. Usually they're a little bit longer, so you end up cutting about 1 foot off, roughly, so 12 inches or so. So reeling silk, it's a practice that's based on from Chen style Taiji. Taiji is their system, it's their family style, basically. So this is the way they this is one of their practices that is quite unique to them, I think. So I don't see how it's any different to the sort of things that we're supposed to do in Aikido that lots of teachers tell us we're supposed to do. So as and when I'm doing this, I'll try and explain a few things. So there's 2 main directions for silk reeling. There's a positive cycle and a reverse cycle. So I'm going to start with the positive cycle and then explain some things, and then I'll show you the reverse cycle, and then we'll take it from there. So basically, we hold our noodles out, and this is a very high level overview, by the way. So I'm not going to go into crazy amounts of detail. I'm not actually worried about demonstrating it 100% correctly, because this takes a long time to figure out. So I'm sort of going to speak to you guys, you know, maybe like I would to some new people that turn up to the dojo that are interested in doing this. So anyway, one arm moves The other arm doesn't. Okay, so, but both hands are turning like this all the time. So if I just get a little bit closer, this is basically what I'm going to do with my hands. All the time, they're turning. Okay, so they don't stop. So what we end up with is a practice that looks like this. I'll break this down in a minute. But if you look at my hands, they're still doing this. So a lot of this, it's kind of like an optical illusion. As soon as you start looking at the big circle, you miss out that the hands are also turning, if that makes sense. So all the time, forwards. So down, across, turning all the time, up, away. So imagine it's a square. So it comes down, concentrate on this arm. It comes down, it comes across, it goes up, and it goes away. So down, across, up, and away. And all the time, this is happening. All the time, I'm turning the noodle forwards. So,
and you're turning both hands, John?
Yes, both hands. So there's, without sort of getting too complicated, this doesn't get locked, this hand. So what usually happens lots of times is people do this and they lock this hand, and what happens is you destroy your, okay, these are only a couple of pounds, so it's, you know, not the worst thing in the world, but they get broken. So, but all the time, if I just, let me try and get a little closer. So all the time, my hands are doing something like this. So when I start reeling, I'll make it a little smaller. They're still turning. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
So they never stop.
Can one do this exercise without that, like empty-handed?
Yeah, of course. One of the things is, you know, I don't know what the guys do in Chen Taiji when they're learning this practice, but I'm pretty sure it's not with a pull noodle. So it's empty hand. So they would be doing, you know, this kind of thing. So I've never done a Taiji class in my life, by the way. So I'm not a Taiji teacher. I don't profess to be, but it's down, across, up, away. So you can think of it like a square. It comes down, it comes across, there's a transition, you push into the floor and it lifts up, and then away. So lots of martial arts teachers talk about adding resistance to your body, or moving like you're studying treacle or honey or molasses or whatever you want to think about. Oil, doesn't matter. So it's very difficult. It's actually kind of difficult to imagine the resistance. Of course, you could stand in a swimming pool and do the same thing. But if you've got a pull noodle, it gives you that resistance within your body to an extent. So my hands are connected. They're not just both off in different directions. So down, across, and all the time they're turning. So eventually this becomes a bit more circular. But when you want to learn this, it's make it a square, draw a square, point with your finger, it's okay, across, down, towards, up, away. So obviously, you know, we practice both sides. So if you're doing this empty hand, don't forget, both hands should be turning. So one of the ways that I explain this, whether I've got pull noodles or I'm just doing empty hand with students, is imagine this arm is trapped in a vice. It's held. So if that's in a vice, I can move away from it and I can move towards it. But in terms of 3D space, this part of my arm doesn't move too much. But sure, exactly like that. But of course, my hand is free to move. So my body comes towards this hand and it goes away from this hand and it comes towards from. Okay, that doesn't make any difference whether you have a noodle or not. So this stays here and I come towards and I go away from. So we would call this closing because everything's coming down and towards. So that's a closing motion. So this is close or store, and this is open or release. So we cycle between closing and opening. Close, open. So that's basically the positive cycle. So again, one more time, imagine it's a square, down, towards, up, away. Eventually, it becomes a little more circular, okay? So over time, you take the corners away and it becomes more circular. So as I mentioned, that's the positive cycle. There's also a reverse cycle. So this one, I like this one. This one's good. So again, imagine this is called the support arm. This is the reeling arm. This is the support arm. So imagine within reason, your support arm is trapped, the forearm area, okay? So again, I can move away from my arm. I can come towards my arm. I can get nearer my arm and further away from my arm, but it stays more or less in place, in space. So from here, last time, this way, this time, this way. So the circle this time is just this. So positive reel is forwards. This one goes backwards. That's it. So I get nearer, I go away. All the time, it's just this. Nothing's changing. So this arm stays put. My body, from my back foot, pushes my body towards my arm, okay? Arm doesn't come to the body. Body comes to the arm, quite important. If you could imagine a glass tube, and imagine somehow I can pull a cloth through the tube to clean it or something. So I have a big glass tube here, and I'm pulling a pipe cleaner or something through that tube. So it comes towards me, it comes down, it goes away. For the sake of arguments, I have to obviously grab, so I have to transition from one side to another. Of course, I don't want to let go of this because I lose all the tension. So just this way. This is called closing. Everything comes to my knees, closed. Everything gets sucked into the dantian or gets pulled into the dantian or the sensei or hara. tanden, however you want to refer to it, I don't mind. Close, open. So we're closing, storing, releasing. This is actually teaching you, it's a punch. The positive reel is a strike. So it has some practical benefit too. Close, open, store, release. So you build some pressure up when you pull everything together and close. And then you release. I'm not doing this properly because I'm talking at the same time. So basically, it's just this. So this is just a piece of foam. You'll be surprised how much resistance you get from it initially. Your wrists will ache, your forearms will ache, but it is just a squidgy piece of foam, okay? These ones, by the way, from Amazon, if you find the black ones on Amazon, they're pretty decent. They're pretty cheap. They're £2 or £3 each. I think you have to buy a pack of 4, but they're actually pretty good. They last quite well. So these are the best ones I've found so far. So this is, again.
Where's the square when you do it this way? Can you show the square?
Yeah, it would be, if you imagine it's coming towards, down, away, up. This one always is more circular. It's easier to think of this one as more circular than the other one. The other one, we teach it in a more of a square shape because it's big. This one is smaller. So it's always gonna, it takes the corners off naturally. So it's still there, but it just tends to become very circular right from the off. This is probably actually easier to teach than the square one because it just very naturally becomes circular. So that's the positive one, and it's the reverse one. So lots of martial arts teachers talk about the infinity symbol or the figure 8. So my teacher mentions it a lot, Aikido Sensei. Lots of teachers do. If you think about the 2 movements we've just been doing, so the kind of infinity symbol, this kind of thing, number 8 on its side, if you like. If you think about those 2 movements, we had this, and then we had this. So there's kind of, it's there. It's the same thing. It's just broken down and gone into a lot more detail. So I find this practice incredibly useful. If I could take one thing back 30 years ago to have started my Aikido journey with, it would be silk reeling. I wished I'd paid attention to some of the Chinese body movement systems back then. So, you know, I love the shape of Aikido. I love the shape of Japanese martial arts, but you know, I just wished I'd paid attention to this kind of thing a long time ago. So we start off with these. What we then progress to are these. This is a rubber bar, called a kendo bar. These are 90 centimeters long. So full noodle, usually you want 1 meter long. This is about 10 centimeters shorter than that. So you can't buy these in the UK anymore. The German distributor has, for the last couple of years, considered the UK to no longer be part of the EU. So find a friend in Germany or France, get them to buy it and ship it over. It works just fine. You can buy it, ship it to them, they can send it over. I've imported about 50 of these over the past several years. So I don't have any at the moment, probably going to buy some more soon. So maybe we can organize something. They cost about 50 euros, 45 to 50 euros, unless they've gone up since the last time I checked. This, compared to the pool noodle, is like night and day. This is the treacle or the honey just got a lot thicker. It's like set honey this time. So when you're doing these, the movements, it's a lot more physically demanding. But everything gets a little smaller. And you build up a lot of very interesting strength. This is the biggest strength builder I've discovered in terms of martial arts type strength. Many years ago, I had quite a nasty nikyo put on my wrist, and the tendons were, it was just very, very sore for a long time. Starting this practice built it up, and my wrist now, there's nothing wrong with it. It's a lot stronger than it ever used to be. So they're very, very good for keeping your joints mobile. So the practice is the same. It's just you're under a lot more tension when you're doing this. So I'm giving you, like I said, a very, very brief, quick, high-level overview. A lot of this is actually coming from my legs. You're not going to see that, but you start with your arms, and then other things will start taking over eventually when you get more into it. So positive, reverse. So movement systems are kind of one of the things that interest me a lot in my own practice and in my own dojo. And some of these, I've heard my teachers for years say, things about the infinity or number 8 on its side. And when I started doing some of the work with the kendo bars and the pool noodles, it started informing my Aikido practice and changing how I do techniques. So, one of the things my own teacher was very clear about is don't be a carbon copy of me. You have to find your own thing and develop yourself. Don't copy me. So if we think about this particular positive cycle for a second. Now, I think in most styles of Aikido, you might call it kokunage, you might call it sokkumen irimenage, but there's a shape like this. Yeah? Someone comes in, katate dori, same side grab, and we go bosh and put them on the floor. Okay? Or you project away. Depends on your style. Some people will go down. No one's right, no one's wrong. I'm not teaching you how to change your style, but maybe this can help. Unfortunately, I don't have a partner here, so I can't show you how this exactly applies, but I'll turn my back for a second and I'll end up facing you guys, hopefully. So it's just this. Someone comes in, boom. This way, this way. I don't mind what you do with your hands at the end, but it's Aikido, right? But it's not from Aikido, it's from Chan style Taiji. So, I don't see any difference. This movement, kokunage. So, what else? Imagine kosadori, cross hand grab. Again, a kokunage type movement. So your partner comes in, they grab your wrist, and usually, again, I'm sure everyone practices this, you step and you throw your partner away. one of the things with this is, let me try and show this. Hand doesn't do this. It's forward. It's going away from you all the time. Does that make sense? So it's not this way. It's actually going forwards all the time. I'm pushing the treacle away all the time. So now imagine someone grabs my hand. Instead of trying to throw someone, they've grabbed me. It's kind of hard to demonstrate when I'm trying to do it to myself. But they're my treacle. They're my resistance. So I reel through them to project them away, or to take the slack away from their body, or to take the slack away from my body. So yeah. So it's quite nice to do kosadori, kokinage, etc. And again, your hand doesn't come back to your body. Your body can come to your hand or help your hand to move away from it, but your hand doesn't come towards you. You lose all your strength. So that's another area where just the shape has informed my Aikido. Instead of just, you know, this kind of way and projecting someone away, it's just, but it's not just this hand. This hand's moving too. So I can't separate from doing silk reeling when I'm doing Aikido. Again, it's a thing a lot of teachers say. Don't use just one side of your body, use both sides. So when I'm practicing and doing techniques, whatever it is, I'm using both hands are doing something all the time. So that's just another technique. Iri Minage, for example. Again, so I know someone comes in and maybe, I don't know how you do Iri Minage exactly, but you know, everyone practices a style of Iri Minage. But again, we can turn this. The way we practice this, you know, just kind of imagine here's my partner's head, neck, etc. Boom, this way. We can turn this into a strike here. Boom. So this way. But again, it's this shape. Tenchinage. Why is that any different? Tenchinage, Iri Minage, kind of pretty closely related, sort of. Body positions a little different, but the shape's not so different necessarily all the time. So you have heaven, earth, down, but this can still be a similar, you know, component of it. So instead of just making it very boom, you can move your body as if you're in treacle and loosen everything up. So that's just a very quick overview of some of the things I think about when I'm doing Aikido and how this practice has changed the shapes of my techniques, even Ikkyo. So Ikkyo, Ikkyo. So there's still components of silk reeling. Instead of thinking of this way, I can make things a bit smaller, more compact. Etc. So in my Aikido, sometimes instead of, again, from some of the pull noodling things, instead of moving my body like this, say in Ikkyo, instead of, for example, like this, I might go like this and bring everything down and in. So this doesn't move with my body moves towards this arm as it's coming in. So it's changed a lot of fundamental shapes from my Aikido. So thank you for watching. If you've got any questions, let's have a chat. So I've been talking for about half an hour now.
Yeah.
It's a very important practice to me. Yes.
can I just ask you about the legs? If you
Yes.
maybe you can show us the legs just briefly.
Sure. Again, this isn't always set in stone, but imagine when I'm your ankle and wrist are the same type of joint, more or less. Your elbow and your knee are the same, and your shoulder and your hip are pretty similar, or the socket. So when this is coming down and towards, imagine this is all connected with a piece of elastic. As this moves, this comes. Do you see? So if I close my body, these have come in, and then so when I'm moving down and towards my, this is very basic. It doesn't, the other one, the left, tends to do something a little different later on, but if I'll oversimplify it for now, everything does this. So everything does this. So it's like, you have to imagine you're driving a bus. You wouldn't drive it this way, you drive it this way. Elbows in, hands out. Imagine Okinawan, if you've seen Okinawan karate, you know, they're always in this kind of stance when they're doing things. So same thing. Your elbows get pulled in, and so do your knees. So if I exaggerate that movement, and what happens is, this would have stayed where it is, and I'll have moved my body over here. And then open. So close, open. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Of course, it's not always that way. When you get a bit more, I can open this side and close this side too. So it's not that it's always this, it could be this. But that gets a little more, it hurts the brain a little more to consider that side of it. So when you're starting, it's easier to imagine knees in, elbows in, knees out, elbows out. Easiest way to consider it, I think. The other thing to bear in mind is when you start having a look at this, what happens is most people play air guitar with this arm. My arm actually doesn't, I mentioned this arm, support arm doesn't move much. This one also doesn't move much because it's really moving about this much. The rest of it is my body turns away from my shoulder, so this socket gets tight. If my body keeps turning, my arm has to come because I can't turn away from it. It's locked. So it looks like I'm doing this, for example, but actually I'm doing this. It's still there. It came here because my body closed. So if I, there, it doesn't move too much. It's basically doing this within reason, okay? So this is not air guitar either. It will be when you first start, it's quite normal. Maybe it remains that way for a while too, kind of normal. But you know, you're just learning a big shape, that's okay. We tend to start big and then condense things down and down and down and down, et cetera, et cetera. So,
and regarding the hip,
legs.
is there a flow and a function around the hips that go with the arm movement, the body movement rather?
Sure. Whatever the shoulder is doing is pretty similar to what the hip is going to be doing as well. You just have to imagine the joints doing similar things. One of the ways, excuse me a second, let me just grab something. This is not completely correct. So but it is for the sake of explaining what I'm doing. This is just a section of a pool noodle that's been cut. So for the sake of argument, there's my shoulder socket or my hip socket, doesn't matter. Here's arm in the socket. Yeah. So if I'm going to hold my arm in place, so if my body moves away, it compresses on the outside, this side. Yeah. So there's my body moving away from my arm. There's my arm. Here's my body moving away from my arm. Same thing. It's just a visual, trying to explain this visually. This moves, my body keeps moving, this has to come, but my arm hasn't moved. My arm is exactly where it was. My body made this tight and then moved. Yeah? Hip, same thing, within reason. So that's just a little explanation that we use to show people kind of in a very visual way what we're talking about. Tends to work, or at least gets the point across. Any more questions?
John, this is very interesting. Thank you. One of the attributes of Japanese practice is that the feet remain pretty firmly on the mat. We're grounded to the floor. Yet I see the kind of what I think of as Chinese martial arts flow in your upper body. Can you talk about the feet? Are you tempted to lift them more, or how does that work? And how does that also do to balance?
Sometimes I tend to, let me just angle this down a little bit. So, something like that. So for example, if apologies for now, just you can only see my feet. So if I was doing Irimi Tenkan or something like that, so lots of times, and again, I'm just saying what I see sometimes, is it's almost like skating, right?
Yeah.
People do this. I tend to come in and pivot. So I want everything to be tight. I want to have economical movement here. So I don't want to, for my own practice, I don't want to ice skate. I want to be precise. So I'm adjusting between the back of my foot and the front of my foot as I pivot. And that might be followed with a closing movement, and then I'll be stepping back. So again, for something like Ikkyo, how we would do it, this will come up.
John, excuse me.
Yeah.
We have a minute left, so time is flying.
Okay.
It's going to shut within a minute.
Okay. So this way.
Yeah.
Like throwing a ball. My teacher explained a professional throwing a ball. Ikkyo.
Yeah.
So they can come up. I don't have a problem with feet. I grab the floor, use my toes to grab the floor sometimes too. It just,
But sometimes you shift your weight a little bit further back in the foot. A little bit.
Sure. I'm always quite rear weighted.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
And I know time flies, and I want to thank you, John, for coming.
Very much. Yeah.
But if you have something final,
my pleasure. Honestly, my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. Again, all I can say is that I wish I'd practiced this 25, 30 years ago. I wish that I had the foresight to have seen how important it was.
Yeah, it's very good.
Great. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
I know there's plenty more from there.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, great.
Great. Oh.
A lot to think about and work on.
So that second bar was called a kendo bar, did you say?